A word of caution. This episode features details of murder, kidnapping, and sexual assault that may be difficult to hear. Please take care when listening. In 2016, a South Carolina couple went missing, and their families knew something was wrong, especially when their Facebook accounts seemed to remain active. With the use of their cell phone data, investigators quickly zeroed in on the last location the man and woman had visited, and what they found there was terrifying. But not only that, the discovery on that November day in 2016 unraveled the mystery of a local quadruple homicide that had taken place years earlier and revealed a monster had been living and practicing in the community for years. There is much to love about North and South Carolina, but the two states have also had their fair share of violent and senseless crimes over the years, from murders on the Blue Ridge Parkway, in the heart of big cities or sleepy college towns, and along the coastal waters. Some of these stories may be new to you. Some may have happened in your town. Some may involve people that are still missing to this day. But all will leave you remembering to always be vigilant about the people you meet and the places you go. I'm Renee Robertson. Please join me for Missing in the Carolinas. Episode 160, Todd Kohlhepp's Crimes in South Carolina. On November 6, 2003, a customer walked into the Superbike Motorsports store in Chesnee, South Carolina to find it eerily quiet. The reason? The 4 employees inside the store, 3 men and 1 woman, had been murdered, shot multiple times. They were Scott Ponder, 30, of Boiling Springs, Brian Lucas, 30, of Gaffney, Beverly Guy, 52, of Spartanburg, and Christopher Sherbert, 26, of Boiling Springs. Superbike Motorsports at the time was located next to a cattle field in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains and adjacent to farmland. It was not a place one would normally expect a violent crime to take place. Noel Lee had stopped by the Superbike Motorsports to get tickets for a motocross race in Greenville that was scheduled. He was friends with Brian Lucas and Scott Ponder and often stopped in the shop when he had time off from his job at BMW. He said his 2 friends had taught his 8-year-old son to ride a little motorcycle. Scott Ponder was one of the owners of the shop, and Beverly Guy was his mother, who also worked there. Brian Lucas and Christopher Sherbert were employees. Noel found the bodies of Brian and Scott just outside the shop. Beverly was in the front area, and Christopher was in the back of the shop, just on the other side of the 2 double doors. Each victim had been shot at least once in the head and once in the chest. In the days after the discovery, Noel told the Gaffney Ledger, "I keep thinking I'll wake up from this, that they'll call and say, 'You ready to go to the arena?' That I really did get the tickets. That all this is not true." At the time of the shootings, residents and investigators wondered if they were linked to a triple homicide that had occurred during a bank robbery in Greer, South Carolina, just a few months earlier. However, nothing appeared to be stolen from the shop at the time of the murders. A man named Robert Fowler said he'd seen customers come in to pick up their repaired equipment and vehicles grow irate when they received their invoices. He wondered if an angry customer could have flown off the handle and been responsible for the murders. Sheriff Bill Coffey said he didn't think the murders were a random act of violence. Investigators released sketches of 2 people they thought might be witnesses to the murders. Reportedly, witnesses had seen a dark green minivan driving erratically away from the motorbike shop, where a man was chasing a woman who appeared to be upset. Lieutenant Ron Gahagan would not say whether the couple was at the shop or whether they had come forward on their own. Scott Ponder's wife, Melissa, gave birth to their son 7 months after the murders. By November 2004, a year after the shootings, no arrests had been made. The Spartanburg Sheriff's Office offered a $25,000 reward for information leading to an arrest and released sketches of potential witnesses and photos of vehicles that were at the shop on November 6, 2003, when the 4 victims were discovered deceased. The murders at Superbike Motorsports would haunt the Chesnee community until 13 years later, when the disappearance of 2 couples finally provided a stunning answer. In early September 2016, the family members of Kayla Brown, age 30, and Charlie Carver, age 32, became concerned when they hadn't heard from the couple who were living together in Anderson. They resided at the Anderson Crossing Apartments, with Charlie working at a tissue plant and Kayla at a dialysis clinic. She had also begun working a side job working for a real estate agent, 45-year-old Todd Kohlhepp, helping him clean and clear houses before he offered them for rent. Her friend Leah Miller told the Greenville News that she had once gone with Kayla to Todd's residence to get the key to a house Kayla was supposed to clean. She helped her friend out that day, and Todd told the two women they could keep whatever people had left there. She was supposed to continue helping Kayla with the house cleaning jobs, but had neck surgery and had to take a break from the work to recover. On Thursday, November 4th, 2016, investigators headed to a property in Woodruff, South Carolina, owned by Todd Kohlhepp. It spanned 95 acres. They knew the last time a cell phone tied to Kayla and Charlie had last pinged at that location, and that helped narrow down their search. While there, they heard banging coming from a metal storage building and grew suspicious. Upon further inspection, they discovered Kayla Brown inside, alive but chained up by the neck. Anderson Police Chief Jim Stewart said the investigation into Kayla and Charlie's disappearances prompted the department to obtain search warrants for Todd Kohlhepp's home in Moore, as well as his property out in Woodruff. Kayla told authorities Todd had shot Charlie in front of her, and that there could be as many as 4 more bodies buried on the property. As they dug into his past, investigators learned Todd Kohlhepp was a convicted sex offender. While living in Arizona in 1986, 15-year-old Todd lured a female neighbor to his home with the promise that her boyfriend was waiting there to speak to her. Once out of her house, he put a gun to her head and forced her to his home a few blocks away from Arizona State University. His father was away at the time on a business trip. Inside the home, he tied the girl's hands with rope and put tape over her mouth before sexually assaulting her. Afterwards, he walked her home and threatened to murder her younger brother and sister if she told anyone what happened. Someone else alerted the authorities, though, and when police arrived at his father's house, he had a rifle pointed at the ceiling. He told them he had committed the crime out of anger and rebellion towards his father, who he had been living with in Arizona. Todd was convicted of rape and served 15 years in prison before relocating to upstate South Carolina, where he opened his real estate business. He had to register as a sex offender, something one of his neighbors on Winsong Way in Moore became aware of when he moved in next door to her. She said she had looked it up and the details were disturbing, but she never noticed any strange behavior in him. Agents who worked at Todd's real estate firm, TKA Real Estate Agency, had no idea their boss was a registered sex offender, and they were surprised when police told them. Investigators discovered Charlie's deceased body on Todd's property, along with the bodies of 2 other people who'd been reported missing in the months prior. On November 28, 2016, Todd was charged with 3 counts of murder, 3 counts of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime, and 1 count of kidnapping in the deaths of Charlie Carver and Johnny and Megan Coxey. The Coxeys had been shot on December 25th or 26th of 2015 and buried on the property. Megan McGraw Coxey, age 25, died of a gunshot wound to her head, and her husband, 29-year-old Johnny Joe Coxey, had been shot in the torso. They were both identified through dental records and tattoos on both of their bodies. Because it appeared Megan and Johnny had gone to his land voluntarily, authorities did not introduce additional kidnapping charges in their cases. Kayla told police she'd met Todd 5 or 6 years earlier after being introduced by a young man she was dating at the time. She and Todd kept in touch on Facebook, and eventually she'd started cleaning houses for him. In late August, she and Charlie had driven out to the property so they could help trim some underbrush. What happened after is something that no one should ever have to experience in their lifetime. She said after the couple retrieved hedge clippers, Todd told them to wait outside while he went back into the house. When he came back out, he had a gun in his hand and fired 3 shots into Charlie's chest. Todd then grabbed Kayla, took her inside the house, and handcuffed her. He told her he was sorry about killing Charlie, but that she knew he liked to kill people because he used to do it for a living. Kayla said he told her he didn't know if he was going to keep her or sell her. When he took her back outside, she saw that he had wrapped Charlie's body up in a blue tarp and put it in the bucket of his tractor. He then chained her up inside the metal building where she was eventually discovered. Todd asked for the passwords to both of their phones and Facebook accounts. He said he had dumped Charlie's car after spray painting it. Over the next 2 months, Kayla endured numerous sexual assaults when Todd would retrieve her from the building and take her back to the main house. He provided her with meals and let her bathe, but all the while, he told her about the many people he'd killed and promised to teach her how to do it too. He said he would never see jail time because he would either buy his way out of jail or his handlers would get him out. He bragged he'd been a military contractor that killed people and also confessed to killing 4 people at a bike shop in Anderson years earlier. The real estate agent had bought that piece of land in May 2014 for $305,000. He told colleagues at the TKA real estate agency that he was interested in farming. A local resident named Wilton Lawrence had sold the Woodruff land to Todd. He said after the sale went through, the real estate agent wanted to be left alone and wasn't interested in making friends with the neighbors. Wilton and his daughter Jennifer Weaver said Todd would visit the property in the evenings to plant trees, clear underbrush, and bring in a shed. One odd thing they noticed was that Todd focused on putting a metal chain-link fence around the property. He said it was more like something you'd see in an industrial area, not out in the country. Wilton also added that it was an expensive choice to enclose the 95 acres. During the time family members couldn't reach Kayla and Charlie, they said strange postings appeared on their Facebook accounts. One even announced the two had married, which they hadn't discussed with friends or family. An especially eye-raising post allegedly made by Charlie included lines from the Eagles song Hotel California. You know, the line that says, "You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave." Meanwhile, while Kayla and Charlie's family were concerned about their whereabouts, Todd Kohlhepp posted multiple times on Facebook about work he was doing on his 95-acre property. He posted 12 times about it, to be exact. He described filling ravines with gravel and boulders, running from a swarm of bees, and using heavy machinery to take down trees. On August 31st, the last day anyone reported seeing Kayla, he posted a status about his trash pickup, saying it was way more interesting than what's on the news. On September 15th, 2016, Todd posted, "Reading the news. This person missing, that person missing, another person missing. Oh, wait, that person went to the beach with a friend. Another person found with her parole violation boyfriend. In the event I become missing, please note no one would mistake me. I eat too much and I'm crabby. They would just bring me back or give me $20 for a cab ride. Most likely, if I am missing, it's because my dumb ass did something on that tractor again, and I'm too stubborn to go to a doctor. I got 9 lives. I ain't done yet." On November 5th, 2016, Tom Clark and Mark Gaddy, senior investigators with the Spartanburg County Sheriff's Office Violent Crimes Unit, questioned Todd. Tom Clark had been acquainted with the real estate agent previously when they both lived at an apartment complex in Spartanburg. The two men devised a plan to keep Todd talking as long as they could, knowing it would enable them to a majority of their questions answered. Todd was not the kind of guy to stay silent for long. He'd already confessed to killing Charlie Carver at this point. The night before this interrogation, Todd's mother, Regina Tague, called an investigator with the 7th Circuit Solicitor's Office and shared that her son had called her from jail. She mentioned her son's arrest and incarceration in Arizona in the 1980s. She said she asked her son if he'd been responsible for killing others, and he told her there were more bodies than you can count on 2 hands. She also suggested investigators might want to look into Todd's connection to the Superbike murders. She said around that time, he had bought a motorcycle he couldn't ride, became irrationally angry, and refused to even drive past the store after the murders. When Tom Clark asked Todd why he shot Charlie, he said he didn't know how to answer that, only that he wasn't angry at Charlie, but at Kayla. He asked if investigators had found Charlie's body yet, and they told him yes. That's when he let them know there were other bodies on the property and shared how he met Megan and Johnny Coxey. He said he'd seen Megan panhandling out on Reedville Road one day and felt sorry for her, so he offered her and her husband a job cleaning houses for his business. According to Todd, they'd come out to his Woodruff property to pick up cleaning supplies when Johnny pulled a knife on him. Todd reacted by shooting him in the chest. He said he'd put Megan in the metal shipping container, the one he'd later used to imprison Kayla Brown, and kept her in there for several days, bringing her food, drinks, and cigarettes. He said he was going to give her $4,000 and drop her off in Tennessee so she could get work and start her life over. But then he said she kept burning things in the container and destroying property, acting like a caged animal. So his solution was to shoot her in the back of the head. The interrogation had been going on for 2 hours at that point, and Tom Clark wanted to circle back to the Superbike murders. He said he'd worked on that case when he first started out as a detective, and it was important to him. He told Kohlhepp he thought he'd owned a motorcycle in the past and wanted to know what happened to it. Todd came clean and said he'd purchased a Suzuki motorcycle from the store, but wasn't able to ride it. When he tried to trade it in, the manager had made fun of him, which angered Todd. He said the employees had stolen his bike and laughed at him. After more gentle prodding from Clark and Maddie, Todd said he had shot the victims with the Beretta 92 FS and described 2 different types of ammo he'd used. Spartanburg County Sheriff Chuck Wright held a press conference and told the dozen reporters standing outside Todd's Woodruff property that they'd just solved a 13-year-old cold case, the identity of the Superbike motorsports shooter. Wright said, as satisfying as that moment was for me, what was going through my head was the families. They all waited so long to get answers about what had happened to their loved ones. Before we continue, let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsors. After several years of using the products, I'm still singing the praises of the SkinX Aaron products offered by Midnight Riff. I love Aaron Sanderson's skincare line so much, I became an ambassador so I could earn a small commission off telling everyone just how much I appreciate the pre-cleanse oil, hydrating beauty oil, and perfecting night oil. My skin is acne-free, even in the throes of perimenopause, and looking brighter and more youthful than ever. And don't just take my word for it. Here are a few recent reviews from other people who love the products just as much as I do. Leah says, I have been using the 3-piece set for a few years now. I can't live without it. It is truly the holy grail of skincare. My skin is so soft and healthy. I'm a lifelong user. I love it. Another user wrote, I love this oil. I'm 47 and my skin soaks it up. I've been using it for many years now, so it's like hot sauce. I use it on everything. Itchy knees, cuts on my hand, my daughter's dry lips, and of course, my face. Now I'm ready for the groupie-sized gallon bottle. On average, the oils last around 3 months, and despite their names, they won't make your skin oily. Try them out for yourself with my code MissingCarolinas10 for 10% off your order. I had been unhappy with my old podcast host for a while and was looking for other options. I discovered Riverside FM and learned that for one low monthly fee, it would help me record the podcast and utilize video capabilities. It uses AI technology to easily create clips from each episode that I can share on my social media accounts. I don't consider myself to be very tech savvy, but audio and video editing with Riverside FM software has been a breeze, and I look forward to recording days now. If you're looking for a company that will help you with all your podcasting, webinar, and video needs, I encourage you to check out Riverside FM. You won't be disappointed. I'll include a link for you in the show notes. And now, let's get back to the show. On November 13th, 2016, the Greenville News published a portrait of who Todd Kohlhepp was, from his early years to his time spent in prison to the days that led up to his arrest earlier that month. It was titled, Alleged Serial Killer's Life Plagued by Uncontrollable Rage. The article described Todd as a person who'd been angry from a very young age. His parents had divorced when he was really small, and Todd spent his formative years angry at his stepfather. In 1982, Todd went to live with his biological father for the summer in Arizona. His father hadn't been around a lot when he was younger, and he hoped to grow closer to him. When Todd had to return to his mother's home in South Carolina, he wasn't happy. He demanded his mother, Regina, send him back to Arizona. Todd returned to Arizona for the next school year and took a part-time job at his dad's restaurant. He also worked in landscaping and at a fast food restaurant. Eventually, Todd said he grew disillusioned with his father, who seemed to prefer spending time with his girlfriends over his son. Todd showed an interest in weapons early on, an interest he shared with his dad. Right before his arrest in 1986 for sexual assault, Todd was telling his mother he was ready to return home to South Carolina. Todd told the Arizona police officers that he had committed the assault because he was angry with his father. A psychologist diagnosed him with borderline personality disorder. In the evaluation, the doctor noted that Todd was deeply emotionally disturbed. He also presented as egotistical and liked to rebel against authority. He always wanted to be in control. The evaluation concluded that the only emotion Todd was capable of was anger. However, in school, he never had any significant behavioral problems. He had an IQ of 118, but low academic performance. At first, his mother believed he showed no signs of remorse for the crime against his female neighbor. He began writing his mom letters while he was in jail. She didn't believe him when he said he regretted his behavior, and his stepfather and biological father also refused to support him during that time. The psychologist who evaluated him suggested he serve time in juvenile detention and an aggressive offenders program. But another doctor weighed in and said that program was full to capacity and geared toward younger offenders. The juvenile probation officer then recommended adult incarceration, saying Todd's behavioral issues were more serious than anything that could be cured in 3 years or less of treatment. Todd agreed to plead guilty to kidnapping in exchange for the sexual assault charges to be dropped. His mother wrote to a probation officer before his sentencing that she and her son had grown closer through their correspondence and that he had mistakenly put his biological father on a pedestal. A judge sentenced Todd to 15 years without the possibility of parole. During his first few years of prison, Todd was cited for various infractions, including destroying property and fighting. Then he took jobs in the prison cafeteria and in landscaping and maintenance. He also had the opportunity to receive vocational training in computer programming. He was released at the age of 30 and moved back to South Carolina to be closer to his mother. He had to register as a sex offender, but began working as a graphic designer for a sports apparel company. He worked for that company for 2 years, until the month the Superbike Motorsports murders occurred. In 2006, Todd applied for a South Carolina real estate license. On that application, he told a different story when asked to explain his criminal background. He wrote that he'd had an argument and breakup with a girlfriend, but they'd agreed to remain friends. Her dog escaped from her house and the two agreed to search for it together. Her parents had grown concerned about her and called the police. Todd said he was carrying a firearm because he was fearful of the gangs in the Phoenix area and told her not to move while they talked things out. He also said that he earned his GED and an associate degree in computer science while in prison. His real estate license was approved, and Todd worked as a broker for a Spartanburg real estate company before starting his own agency, TKA Real Estate, which eventually employed 12 agents. He bought his home on Windsong Avenue in January of 2007, running his business from there. In the month after his arrest, the Greenville News reported that people had made complaints about Todd Kohlhepp to a South Carolina regulatory agency. The person had noticed a Facebook account called Todd Sells Real Estate. It would share questionable posts, such as one quiz that said, "How far would you go for revenge?" The result of the quiz stated, "You'll most likely go haywire on someone taking your revenge out on anybody who did something wrong. Most likely a fatal type of approach is taken. Whether it's murder or gouging out the eyes is up to you, but it's bound to leave your victim mortally scarred or mentally destroyed." Todd responded to the result of the quiz by posting, "Well, that part is true. I take payback a little too far. Easy solution. Don't piss me off. Everybody does just fine." The complaint attached that post and others about sex and weaponry, along with records showing Todd was a registered sex offender, and sent them to the South Carolina Department of Labor, Licensing and Regulation in August of 2009. The person wrote, "As a respected member of the real estate community, I was just wondering if this is how we want our profession represented. Also, isn't the Real Estate Commission's responsibility to protect the public? After all, he does have access to all listings in Greenville and Spartanburg. Something must be done to stop this crazy man before something dreadful happens." A spokesperson for the department told the Greenville News that the complaint and another one were never assigned to investigators within the agency. Yet another complaint filed about Todd in 2014 was investigated and dismissed. A woman named Tammy Whaley said she had met with Todd after a friend recommended she use him as her real estate agent. She had one meeting with him where he talked a lot about guns and working on his pilot's license when she quickly decided she didn't want to work with him. She said he made her feel uncomfortable and came across as arrogant. She trusted her intuition and stayed away from him after that. On May 26, 2017, Todd Kohlhepp pleaded guilty to the murder of Charlie Carver, Johnny and Megan Coxey, Beverly Guy, Scott Ponder, Brian Lucas, Chris Sherbert, and the kidnapping and sexual assault of Kayla Brown. Instead of the death penalty, he received 7 consecutive life sentences in prison, plus 60 more for his crimes against Kayla Brown. The solicitor in the case, Barry Barnett, said he knew it was a death penalty case, but that it wasn't fair for the families to have to wait years and years for justice, as the South Carolina death penalty can often take a long time to catch up to a prisoner. At the time of Todd's sentencing, there were 38 people on death row in South Carolina, with the oldest case dating back to 1983. He agreed not to seek the death penalty in exchange for Todd's guilty plea. The families of the murder victims all agreed with the decision. Todd showed no emotion as family members gave their victim impact statements in court. In 2019, the families of Charlie Carver and Megan and Johnny Coxey filed a lawsuit against Academy Sports and Outdoors, saying the store was negligent in selling guns to a straw purchaser named Dustin Lawson, who then supplied them to Todd Kohlhepp. Because of his rape conviction in Arizona, Todd was not legally allowed to own a gun. The sporting goods store sold 12 firearms in different transactions to Dustin Lawson, despite what the lawsuit cited as numerous red flags in the purchases. In 2018, Lawson pleaded guilty to 36 charges in illegally supplying Todd with the guns and was sentenced to federal prison. Those charges included 13 counts of making a false statement to purchase a gun, 13 counts of transferring a firearm to a felon, 5 counts of transferring a silencer device to a person not allowed to have one, and 5 counts of making a false statement to obtain a silencer. The settlement of $2.5 million was split 3 ways between the victims' family members. A year after his conviction, Todd wrote a letter to the Herald-Journal in Spartanburg, South Carolina, claiming he had killed more people than 7. In the 8-page letter, he said, "Yes, there is more than 7. I tried to tell the investigators, and I did tell the FBI, but it was blown off. It's not an addition problem, it's a multiplication problem. Leaves the state and leaves the country. Thank you, private pilot's license." At the time, the FBI's office in Columbia said they didn't have new information to provide about allegations of additional potential victims. In 2019, it became apparent that Todd Kohlhepp showed no remorse for his crimes and was attempting to profit off them. South Carolina prohibits inmates from doing this, and Fox Carolina News began investigating after receiving a tip. Todd had been communicating with several different people from a prison-issued tablet. A tipster provided Fox with an envelope full of copies of artwork, photos, signed confessions, and autopsy reports for his victims. Todd had signed the pages and included a thumbprint, intending to sell the copies. In his emails, he said he was working on designs for t-shirts with the letters SKTK printed on them, as well as other prints with sayings such as, "What would Kohlhepp do?" and "My Glock has anger issues." The news story prompted the Department of Corrections in South Carolina to take away Todd's tablet and move him to the most secure cell block in the state. Because he was caught abusing privileges and violating prison rules, he lost canteen and visitor privileges for 30 days. The Office of the Inspector General opened an official investigation into his business plans. Based on copies of emails obtained through the Freedom of Information Act, Fox News shared Todd had been messaging with a number of individuals who planned to sell his designs and signed memorabilia, as well as a book told from his point of view. I have a lot to say about people who willingly send fan mail to convicted serial killers, but I think that may make for an interesting future episode, so I'll stop here. Todd Kohlhepp remains behind bars where he belongs and will stay there for the rest of his natural life, t-shirts or not. This brings us to the conclusion of this episode of Missing in the Carolinas. If you enjoyed this episode, please do me a favor and give it a 5-star rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, so please like our pages and get started on a discussion of the missing people profiled on the show. Do you know of a missing persons case in North or South Carolina that you think should be covered? Email me at missinginthecarolinas@gmail.com with any details you can share. Cover art for this podcast was designed by Macintosh Multimedia. All episodes are researched and written by me, Renee Robertson, with sound editing provided by Daniel Robertson. Thanks so much for listening.